Okay, I want to focus on the first word.
Yeah.
Ve'ahavta. You should love Hashem, the Almighty. This happens to be one of the 6 constant mitzvahs. What does that mean, constant mitzvahs? Any moment of day or night. Think about it, and you have already a mitzvah to your credit. Think that there's a God, and I love him. This is one of the 6 constant mitzvahs. In the last week's class, we had 2 of them, which I did not mention then, but I'll tell you today. Believing in God. Here, O Israel, there is a God. He is our God. That is also one of the 6 constant mitzvahs. Knowing that there's a God, believing in it. And the last word, echad, that there's only one. That also is one of the 6 constant mitzvahs. But here I have a problem. This one that we just mentioned, to love God, is one of the constant mitzvahs. But Karen, can I ask you to pretend that we are going back a couple thousand years to a country where I am the king and you're one of my servants. I'm going to issue 3, call it commands, and I'm giving you as your king permission to tell me whether I have a right to issue such a command. Number 1. When I came to the chambers this morning, Karen, I was very disturbed. The furniture was in disarray, and it wasn't exactly as neat as I would like it to be. Could you please get some other servants and straighten it all out?
Yes.
No problem. The second one I think is a little more difficult, but I would like you to go to the kiosk, just a little distance from our palace. He has the best coffee in town, and I'm a coffee drinker. I must have a cup of coffee today to start the day. Could you get me one?
Yes.
Karen, as your king, number 3, I command you to hate me. Doesn't make sense. Why? How can anyone be commanded to feel something? You can be commanded to do this and don't do that, but this is one of the greats of the past asks, how is this a command, which is one of the 6 constant mitzvahs, to love Hashem? That's a feeling. It has to come from within, from the heart. The answer is, Hashem gave us, besides a heart, He elevated us by giving us a brain as well. You have to use your brain in order to understand this commandment, to love God. And the brain, if you focus on it, number 1, I'm healthy. And God is giving me everything. My friends, my family, my clothing, everything that I have and I possess is coming from the Almighty Himself. If you focus on that fact, and when it comes to somebody my age, it's a lot easier. The Almighty has blessed me with 7 children, wonderful children, and many, many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I just stop every moment. I stop and think, I love you, Hashem. Thank you for giving me what you gave me. It's such a wonderful treasures. So it's not so difficult to be commanded to love Hashem. Well, you got to use your head and focus on that, what He's giving you, and gave you, and will give you. It's everything we have is from Him. So this is the answer to that tough question. How can we be commanded to feel something? But now we're coming to even a more difficult question. Let's look again at the text in English. How are you supposed to command in 3 different ways? with, number one,
You're right.
b'chol levovacha. Let's look at the Hebrew word first. B'chol, with all, levovcha, your heart. Now the Hebrew word for heart, were you any? Lev, two letters, lev. My heart, libi. Your heart, libcha. Three letters, lamed beis chav. The Torah here says your heart, there's an extra letter there. What is the extra letter? Beis. What? Remember, one of the ways we learn Torah is with the numerical values as well. What is beis equal to? 2. Aleph is 1, beis is 2. There's a special significance in that extra letter when we're commanded to love Hashem with all our heart. With the two major components, spiritual components of our heart. You know what they are? Anybody? When you were born, the Almighty gives us the evil inclination, the Yetzirah. And for girls, you wait 12 years. For men, boys, we wait 13 years till the Almighty gives us the good inclination, the epicenter. Every one of us has these two constant companions. Once we get bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah, we have a good inclination, epicenter, which is telling us to do what's right, to do what the Almighty wants from us. And we also have, with a big head start, the evil inclination. That is telling us, if I can call it an angel, if you wish, who's telling us to not to do what Hashem wants, to go against His will. The question then is, here we are commanded to love God with all your heart, which includes both the good inclination, the Yetzirah, and the evil inclination. How in the world can we love Him with our evil inclination? The evil inclination is telling you right now, if you listen to him, what am I doing here listening to this old man? I should go out to the beautiful day, go swimming or play tennis or something. How could you love Hashem with your evil inclination? That's His job. That's what Hashem created Him for, is to go against His will. You hear the question. It's a powerful question. Now, I'm going to come back to something I told you last week. The ultimate goal of all the 613 mitzvahs is to be a good, kind, decent, loving, compassionate human being, to emulate God, and to have very good character traits. That's the ultimate goal of it all. And He gave us the 613 mitzvahs, the way to acquire these good, tremendously beautiful character traits. So you're going to see now, knowing that, we're going to analyze some bad character traits and show you how we can love God with those. That's the concept of the two base, the letter base, to love Hashem with both components of your heart, the good and evil inclination. When the goal of it all is good character traits, we have to see what to stay away from. One of the worst character traits that we should stay as far as we can from, believe it or not, is anger, ka'as. Ka'as is compared in the Rabbi's commentaries, is compared to one of the three worst sins, which is idol worship. Ka'as is compared to avodah zarah, which is idol worship. And it's logical. Why does a person get angry? Then one of the best examples was Muhammad Ali. I is the greatest. You did something to me? How can you do that? And then the guy loses his cool and blows it up with ka'as and anger. It's because you are actually Idol worship doesn't mean only worshiping a graven image or the sun or the moon. Idol worship, which is one of the three worst sins, you'll soon see why. And yet, it's something you have to give your life for rather than do idol worship. So a person who is getting angry is because he worships himself. It's not only worshiping a graven image, but even worshiping yourself, anything other than God. This is why like Kas, anger is considered one of the worst, terrible character traits. And yet, I'm going to show you, you can take this very same terrible character trait and channel it to the love of God. My favorite example for this is my own son. When he learned how to drive, my oldest son, I should say, who is today a proud grandfather, and when he learned how to drive, a week or two afterwards, he comes over to me and says, and we address our parents in Yiddish, Tati. Tati, please, I have a friend who's sick in bed for a couple of days, and I want to go visit him and comfort him, which is a great mitzvah. And in case you don't know, it happens to be one of the great mitzvahs is to comfort the sick, to visit the sick and make them feel better. I want to go to visit him for a half hour and make him feel better. Of course, I had full confidence in my son, and he had just recently gotten his license, and I was hoping and praying that he would make it back and forth in one piece. And sure enough, he comes back after half an hour. Car is in one piece, and he gives me the keys, and he goes to the Yeshiva, the school. I finish what I had to do. I go somewhere, put the key in, turn on the motor. I was shocked. Music, rock and roll music came blasting at me from that radio. My son should listen to this garbage. I was terribly upset. I can't even tell you how upset I was, because I'm an ardent music lover, and I compose myself many songs, and I happen to be the leader of the Chazan in many years in shuls for the high holidays. But to hear this coming from my son, that he listened to such trash, I couldn't take it. As soon as he came back from Yeshiva, Aryeh, I have to talk to you. Yep. Yes, Dad. Tati, what do you want from me? When I told him what happened, when I went out with the car and I turned on the motor and I heard you were listening to rock and roll music. It's poison. I really feel this truly also. It's totally poisonous to the soul, to the neshama of your soul, and I want you to cease and desist, never listen to this again. I didn't know you felt so strongly about it. Of course I will. A week later, his friend is still sick, and he wants to go visit him again. And guess what happened? I get the car back, and I turn on the motor, and when it first lit, and there's the same garbage, rock and roll music. I couldn't take it this time. And again, I feel this is poison. So I called him, and this time I blasted it away. I hope I didn't lose my control at all, but I really used Kas, anger at the nth degree to let him know how terrible I felt this was, and he should never ever try to do it again. When he saw how I exploded, he got the message, and he stopped. I'm giving you an example. Kas, to use something that idol worship, and yet you can channel it to the love of God, to save someone from doing something terrible. This is just an example, but you can apply it to many other ways. That this worst character trait can be channeled to love. That's the second part. With your evil inclination, basically, because that's where anger comes from. But there's another example that the rabbis themselves teach us. Another example of another terrible character trait, not as dangerous as kas, as anger, but it actually is dangerous because the rabbis say that this particular character trait, which is known in English as jealousy, and in Hebrew it's known as kino, kufnun aleph, can actually kill you physically. A person who's always jealous is in bad shape physically. He develops ulcers and all types of sicknesses that come from jealousy. And yet, here we see how the same terrible character trait can be channeled to the love of God. And it's a quote from the Talmud. 4 words. I'll tell you the Hebrew words. Kinat sofrim, the jealousy of scholars. Tarbe chokhmah, can increase your wisdom. You're in the classroom, and you see one of the girls is constantly getting better smart, and she's always answering the questions, and then the principals rave about her, the teachers rave about her. Are you jealous? You want to be like her? You're jealous? You would like to be like her, to be praised and appreciated from all the staff and the friends. So if you want to be like her, you're jealous of her. You know what you do. You don't listen to the boob tube 3 hours every day, the television, and you do your homework religiously. You become a very, very good student yourself because you want to be like her. So this is a simple example of how you can channel one of the worst character traits to the love of God. Especially when it comes to learning Torah, things that we're obligated to know, to learn. If you see someone who's a great scholar, a great student, and knows all the tests, he gets the highest marks, etc., you want to be like him. You sit down and apply yourself to your studies in a serious way. So there's the answer to how you can love God with even your evil inclination, by channeling old bad character traits to the love of God. Okay, next, after the next verse was, with all your heart, and what is next? Chol nafshecha. One at a time. V'chol nafshecha, with your whole soul. Now this doesn't need too much explanation. With your whole soul. I mentioned before, there are 613 mitzvahs. If, let's take one of the most precious mitzvahs that we have, the greatest gift that God gave us, the mitzvah of Shabbos. I don't know, anyone can live without Shabbos is beyond me. And yet, my Rosh Hashiva, one of the things you're not allowed to do on Shabbos is to drive a car, right? One Shabbos afternoon, my great Rosh Hashiva, head of ours, Reuben Gerzowski, Zatzal, I see him in a car with his son-in-law. I was shocked, but of course I had no problem because we knew his wife was sick and in the hospital, and he must have gotten a call. I don't know exactly what happened, that it was a very serious situation, so he had his son-in-law drive him to the hospital to do whatever they wanted him to do. Even Shabbos, you can, if it's a question of saving a life, all 610 of the 613 can be discarded to save a life. Simple. But 3 of those 613 are an exception. Even it means losing your life, you're not permitted to do it. This is v'chol nafshecha, with your whole soul. Which 3? Idol worship, murder, and illegal sexual relationships. Those are the only 3. You're being forced to kill somebody, or I'll kill you, got to give your life. That's what. The other, that's the simple explanation of the Chol Nafshcha. You got to give your life only for these three. Let's go to the next part. The next is V'chol me'odecha, with all your resources. How do you love God when your resources? Very simple. Public school in America, does it cost anything? Zero. And my own sisters, they had no Hebrew school for girls when we grew up. So they went to public school. Yeshiva, I had a few houses away from where we lived. But public schools, yeshivas for girls didn't exist in the 1930s. But if you want to send your child to yeshiva, it costs a lot of money. You know how much my father paid for me in the 1930s? When I actually started, I started in 31. In 31 was the Depression he paid all of $10 a month. You know, it sounds funny, $10 today is nothing. But $10 probably in today's market is more like 1,000 or 2,000, 10,000, that's all I know. It's much, much higher today. You want to give your kid a good education, you gotta pay for it. That's v'chol me'odecha, with all your resources. Another example. No need. V'chol me'odecha. Oh yes, kosher food. There's another example, of course. You want to eat kosher food, you have to pay a little, and I mean more than a little more than a non-kosher food, but it's one of the mitzvahs of the Torah. You got to do it, okay? We'll go a little further now. So we got the three down. With both parts of your heart, the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, Chol Nafshcha, to give your life, with all your resources. Next comes these major matters that I'm commanding you today should be Hayom today, Al Levavecha, should be Al Levavecha, on your heart. Question is asked, simple question. You don't want them on, you want them on your heart? Where do you want them? In your heart. So the word should not be al, it should be el or bestoch. No, that means inside. That's where you want these major matters to be, inside your heart, not on your heart. There's two answers to that. One is a simple one. Many times our hearts are closed. We don't feel well, whatever the reason may be. But if you have all these matters on your heart, when your heart will open up, you feel better, and everything is okay, then these matters will come in. That's a simple explanation. But my Rabbi did a beautiful example of a much better explanation on why the Torah chooses the word on, upon your heart, rather than in your heart. He took a cup. And he said, let's pretend it's Friday night, and one of the first mitzvahs that we do is make kiddush on a cup of wine. Now, I'm pouring in the wine to the cup, and it reaches just up near the top. Halachically, am I permitted to make kiddush over that cup? Why? It has to be full. That's the halacha. It has to be full in order to make kiddush. How does one know when this cup is full completely? When it overflows. Say that my Rabbi told us. These matters that the Torah is telling us to believe in God, to love God. to know that he's only one. All these major matters of Jewish concepts, your heart should be so filled with these matters that it's overflowing. Then, when your heart is overflowing, that's the right way it should be. Then you go to the next verse, which is V'shinantam levonecha v'dibarta bom. The most important mitzvah of the Torah, learning Torah. Shinan, teach them to your children. And levonecha, the rabbi said, means not only your children, but your students. V'shinantam levonecha, teach them. V'dibarta bom, and you should always be speaking of them, learning Torah yourself. So my Rabbi said, when your heart is so full that it's overflowing with these concepts that you believe 100% in the Torah and all the mitzvahs, then you could be a proper teacher to your children and to your students as well. There's one question though, a simple question. The Torah says teach them to your children and students, and then speak of them, which is learn them yourself. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? To learn or to teach? To learn. So why does the Torah reverse the order? Instead of saying with the Bartabum, study them and know them and learn them, and then Vishinantam, teach them to your students and children. How come it twists it around? And here comes a major concept again. Yes, teach them. V'dibarta, the Hebrew word v'dibarta comes from the root ledaber, which is to speak. But that same verb, ledaber, also has another meaning completely. And there's a Rashi somewhere in the list, Devarim, in the Chumash Devarim, that quotes Dabor, with that root. Dabor echad lo'om v'lo shnei daborim. Dabor is a leader. Dabor, to be only one leader to a nation and not two. So Dabor also means to conduct yourself. Therefore, it says, my Rabbi, if you want to be a very good teacher, the Torah twists it around purposely. Say, yes, you have to teach them by opening up the text and learning, like I'm doing now, teaching you the Shma. But there's a better way to be a good teacher when it comes to Torah and mitzvahs. And that is what I had, thank God, the great fortune to have such leaders. When your leader is such a holy man, because he's such a diamond of a person, because he knows all the Torah, he's such totally immersed in the Torah and the mitzvahs, and he has all these great character traits, which I say is the ultimate goal of all the Torah and the mitzvahs. You want to emulate him. He's a role model for you. You want to be like him. If your teacher has these great character traits, he's always giving and giving and giving, and never demanding except when it's necessary, you want to be like him. Says the Torah, Shinanta levonecha. The best way to teach them to your children, v'dibarto, you should conduct yourself, in these matters, the Torah of mitzvahs. If you conduct yourself and you become an ideal human being where everyone wants to emulate you, that's the best way to teach. And this happens to be, as I said, this is the source of the most important mitzvah of learning and teaching Torah. V'dibarto bom. And there's a beautiful remez. You remember one of the four ways we teach the Torah is with remez, with hints, numerical values, etc., or acronyms. The word bom has two letters. Are you all aware that the Torah, the great holy Torah, has two major parts? One is called Torah Shebiksav, the written law, the Torah, the 5 books of Moshe, and all the prophets. That's called the written law. And there's the oral law, the Torah Shebal Peh, which is the explanation of the written law, which most of the time that's used to study is for the oral law, which is the Gemara and the commentaries on the Gemara. So the word, if you want to know what the Torah is requiring of us to learn in the Torah? What is it, or written law or the oral law? The answer is in the word bom. The word v'dibarto bom, the mitzvah to study Torah, is in the two letters of bom. Anyone who knows the beginning, the first letter of the written law, Bereshis, Beis. The Beis of bom represents the whole written law, and the first letter of the oral law, which is the Mishnayos, is Me'emosai. The first letter in reference to the law of reciting the Shma. Me'emosai Korban Shma, the time we're supposed to recite the Shma. So we have a remez, a hint, that the mitzvah, the study of Torah, is both the written law as well as the oral law. Both, one without the other is no good. Okay. Now, the question is, and then we go further, where and when are you supposed to study Torah? The rest of the verse tells us. Slowly, again, carry.
English or Hebrew?
Huh?
English or Hebrew?
Hebrew first.
Hebrew. V'shivtecha b'veitecha, u'v'lechtecha b'derech, u'v'shalchtecha u'kumecha.
English.
When you sit in your home, while you walk on the way, when you retire, and when you arise.
When you're sitting in the home, when you're walking on the way, and when you retire and you get up. By the way, the last two words you just recited, when you retire and when you get up, happens to be another mitzvah that what this class is all about, of reciting the Shema twice a day. Schechter, when you go to bed, V'kumecha is a mitzvah to recite the 3 paragraphs of the Shema, an easy mitzvah, and something that's beneficial. Okay. Thanks to most of us do this talking about Torah in our homes when most of the time is that when we're home all together on Shabbos and the holidays. We sit down together at the Shabbos table 3 times, 3 meals every Shabbos. And on Chagim it's only 2 meals. And we talk Torah, we talk about the stories of the great rabbis, etc. This is Meshivtecha b'veisecha. You can only do it, basically, if you keep the Shabbos and Yom Tov properly, that's when you have your best chance to spread the Torah around from all the sources that you might have heard. V'lechtecha b'derech. But you should also learn Torah when you're traveling, when you're walking on the road. I personally translated that too. We're always traveling in this country, and this is the world, we're always traveling. And sometimes we're traveling overseas, it takes a good 10 hours. You don't just listen to those stupid televisions that they have there. You take out a book of Torah and you study it. And once, way back at the beginning of when I taught in the 80s, there was a girl, Deborah Munson, I remember her name, she's married today. Way back in the 80s, she was one of my students, and she had to go to Toronto, her home is in Toronto, and I had to be on that same plane going to Toronto for my yeshiva Aish HaTorah, and 10 hours, sitting next to each other. What did I do? I taught her the whole Shema, and she'll never forget it. She's now married to one of the prominent rabbis in Toronto. You have to utilize your time properly. One of the places is V'lechtecha b'derech when you're traveling. And last but not least, of course, V'shalchtecha u'v'kumecha, when you go to bed and when you get up. That's basically the mitzvah of the Shema. Okay, we're almost one more pasuk, two more to this verse. So Karen is doing a good job so far. Yes, I think so.
Shartam leot al yadecha v'hayu l'totafot bein einecha.
Okay. This is something that doesn't apply to women. One of the mitzvahs that you are exempt, which is the mitzvah of tefillin. You tie them opposite your heart and opposite your brain. What's in the tefillin? Inside the tefillin are 4 chapters of the Torah written by a scribe, the same way he writes the Torah itself on a parchment with special ink, etc. The same 4 parshas of the Torah are in all the on your tefillin, both of them, the one on your arm and the one on your head. Now, if you remember from last week, each mitzvah corresponds to a part of our body. The positive mitzvahs. There are 248 mitzvahs positive and 248 parts of our body. And each one corresponds to and lifts up that part of our body to a higher spiritual level. So here's another example. Where do we put the tefillin? On our arm and on our head. The one on our arm is K'neged Halev, so to speak, that the holiness of the parchments, the parts of the Torah that are in that tefillin should penetrate your heart and lift your heart up to a higher level. And the one on your head is similar, that should lift your brain up to a higher level to become a holy brain, as well as the rest of the body. That's the mitzvah of tefillin. Next, last of the parsha, last but not least, you should also write the words of the Shma, the 2 paragraphs, on the mezuzahs of your houses and your gates. The house has to have a protection. And when you take the mezuzah, again, when a scribe, you can't take anybody to write those mezuzahs. It has to be a professional scribe who writes Torahs and tefillin. He has to write those parshas that were put in the mezuzah, and that mezuzah serves as a protection of our home. But I went to a rabbi many, many years here in Jerusalem. Every Friday he used to give a class, and the last class that I heard, he said something so beautiful about the mezuzah and the rest of the mitzvahs that have this quality. We had a Beis Hamikdash. We had 2. They both were destroyed. And we're hoping and praying, all of us, that very soon Hashem, the Almighty, should. The rabbis tell us that the 3rd Beis Hamikdash is going to come down complete from heaven. Come sailing right down when Mashiach comes. But every Jewish home, this Rabbi Silverberg told us, every Jewish home on Shabbos, on the holidays, is symbolic of the holy temple, the Beis Hamikdash. This is how he said it. How do we begin the Shabbos? And this is the women's job. The men don't do this. What am I driving at? What's the first thing? Lighting the candles. We light those candles, which are symbolic of something in the Beis Hamikdash. There was a beautiful, holy menorah in the Beis Hamikdash made out of pure gold, and was so big, the Kohen Gadol had to get up 2 steps to light it. It was magnificent. So every woman who lights the candles in the house is doing something symbolic of the menorah that was lit in the Beis Hamikdash. Then when we come home from shul, we sit down to an elegantly prepared table, and that table that we have every Shabbos with the 3 meals is symbolic of something else that was in the Beis Hamikdash, which is called the Shulchan. The Shulchan HaTorah, a holy table. That's 2. Number 3, how do we start our meals on Shabbos, not Friday night and Shabbos, all the other meals? How do we start it with what? After Kiddush, I'm saying. The first thing is to make a motzi on 2 chalot, lechem mishneh. The 2 chalot are symbolic of the holy bread, the lechem panim that was on the shulchan in the Beis Hamikdash as well. That's 3. Last but not least, he said, my son added a 5th, but the rabbi said the 4th symbolic item that we have in our homes of the Beis Hamikdash is the last mitzvah we just talked about, the mezuzah. The mezuzah that contains the two parshas, the chapters of the Torah, and written on, as I said, on parchment with a scribe, is symbolic of the holy tablets that were in the holy ark in the Beis HaMikdash. So these four things that we do every Shabbos sort of transforms our home into a miniature holy Beis HaMikdash, temple. And my son should be well. I have a son who's a tzaddik. You know what tzaddik is? A very righteous person. He's a businessman, but he's a tzaddik. Why I call him a tzaddik? He lives in Monsey, New York, and he never fails every day to call us. They keep in touch with us every single day. I have a daughter like that too in Lakewood, New Jersey. Keeps up. But this son of mine, oh no, I'm sorry. The one who said this is not the one who's in Monsey, but the one who lives in Jerusalem. He's closer to the source. He said, there are fifth item that we do in our Shabbos tables, which our family does it more stronger than others, the Zemirot. Singing all the different songs that celebrate the Shabbos in our home, that was a prerequisite. Something stood up on top of everything else. To sing the beautiful Zemirot that would enhance the Ruach, the spirit of Shabbos. And talking about Zemirot, I got to tell you, I end my last class with a song. The song has a story to it. My wife and I were blessed with 5 wonderful children. When she became pregnant at the age of 40, again, and the baby was born, major health problems, brain damage. And there was no hope of ever bringing him home. And the Almighty in His kindness, and great merciful, at the age of 35 days, he took him back upstairs. And because he was more than 30 days old, we had to sit Shiva mourning for a week. And that Shiva took a toll on my 2 youngest who were twins, a boy and a girl. They developed all sorts of emotional pains and aches. It was all psychosomatic. The doctor confirmed it, and he gave us a great idea to go. It was winter time. We took a 3-day break, a vacation, together with these twins. The other 3 were in Shiva, and well, thank God they came out fine. That spring, after we lost this child, she became pregnant again, and this time I wasn't taking any chances. And I made my first trip to Israel, to the biggest doctor in the world. And you know where he is? He's right here at the Kotel. You can find the biggest doctor in the world right here at the Kotel, the Almighty Himself. His presence is felt at the Kotel more than any other place. We also went all over the holy places, graves, and I prayed my heart out for 2 weeks. And I came back, and I came back at the end of June, and at the end of August, my wife gave birth to healthy twins, the second set. After my 2 weeks of davening and praying to Hashem, He answered us. So it couldn't be more perfect. And those are the only 2 that we have with us here today in Israel. All the others are in America. And then, being a composer and a singer, I was so inspired that I took some of the words of King David, which appear in Tehillim, page of 86th chapter of Tehillim. The words are, Otcho Hashem Elokai, I thank you, Hashem, my God. B'chol levovi, two letters again, with my whole heart. V'achavdo shimcha le'olam, and I honor your name forever. Ki, says David, King David. Ki, because chazdecha, your chesed, your kindness, your graciousness, Godol alai was so great. V'hitzalta nafshi, and you saved my soul, mish'ol tachtiya, from the bottomless pit. This is King David's words, and I applied a tune to that, which today became one of very, very, very popular, used all over the world. I will sing it for you, and we'll end the class with my song. My thanks to Hashem. Oitcho Hashem Elokai, b'chol levovi, v'achavedo, shimcho le'yoelom. Oitcho Hashem Elokai, b'chol levovi, v'achavedo, shimcho le'yoelom. Ki chazdecha godol alai, vehitzalta nafshi, nafshi mishoel tachtiyo. Ki chazdecha godol alai, vehitzalta nafshi, nafshi mishoel tachtiyo. I wish you all tzlacha. Again, I have time. Anybody has any questions, wants to ask? I'm here.